All right, so I'm going to talk to you about how I go about my simple bidding process of bidding fences. Like all my bidding, I try to keep things really simple and easy. That way I don't have to do a whole lot of work in the bidding process, which just takes up a whole lot of time, and you don't necessarily get paid unless you get the job done. So I make my bidding processes very simple and easy to do. So I'm going to talk to you about a few scenarios. Painting wood fences up here where we are, they're all rough sawn cedar fences, and I'm also going to talk about iron fences. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. That way you get notified every time I come out with a new video. It's free, simple, and easy to do. I've got over 1,500 videos that I've done over the last 12 years. They're all free that whole time, and they're going to be free forever. So subscribe, hit the subscribe button, notification bell, and you'll get an email every time I come out with a new video. Simple way to help support us. Also give us a thumbs up if you enjoy our videos. On with the bidding process. I've got a fence behind me. This isn't the typical scenario of the average fence we run into on a daily basis or weekly or monthly basis in Idaho. A typical stereotypical fence is going to be a 6-foot dog-eared cedar fence with either 4 or 6 foot planks or fence pickets, and they're usually from post to post 8 feet. And that is a very stereotypical fence. This kind of is a custom fence that's not vertical. This is a horizontal fence, and it does fall into kind of the same category of how I go about bidding fences, and we'll talk about that. When it comes to a fence, we've got posts here. They are post to post. This is a little bit unusual, but we'll just talk about the stereotypical fence, and you'll probably see it on this video. Flash it across here somewhere. Post to post, 8 feet. They got 8 feet studs, usually 2 or maybe 3, and then they're 4 to 6 inch dog-eared cedar fences, all the way closed, all the way touch and closing, so you really can't see through it, and they're privacy fences. And they are not smooth. They are rough sawn cedared fences up here 99.9% of the time. Now my bidding process is very simple. I did a whole bunch of fences, eventually calculated how much material, how much time it was taking to do post to post, and I came up with a number that my fence bids are, and they are $35 per panel, and that is one side of the fence, and post to post is a panel. So it's $35 for the face of that fence, post to post. And then if I'm doing both sides, which most of the time it's a shared fence in a neighborhood, and the customer's only having me do their side, and so it's $35 per panel. Now, if they own both sides of the fence or the other opposite neighbors paying to have it done, you're gonna have 2 sides, and it's $35 times 2. And that is the simple process of how I go about bidding fences. All I do is just count up the panels. So right here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 panels, both sides. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 times 35 is going to be my estimate. Now, of course, I am pointing to this fence right here, and this isn't 8-foot post-to-post sections, but I really just average it out. If I run into a fence like this, it's shorter, but there are gaps in between the fence that make it a little bit more difficult to do the fence. So there's kind of a trade-off. There's a trade-off. This isn't a typical 6-foot fence either, but it's just all going to average out to me. And I do have to say one thing. I don't paint fences to make a living. I typically only do fences for customers where I'm painting their exterior of the house. It's very rare that I go just bid a fence and just do the fence, because to me, there's just not a lot of money in doing fences by themselves. I do them for my customers, and once again, it's going to be $35 a panel. This one here, because of the pickets, you do have to do the tops and bottoms of the pickets or the horizontal slats. You do get overspray going through, the sides a little bit more than a regular privacy fence, but that's kind of the trade-off, $35 because it's lower and more narrow. I want to talk about the $35 charge that we do have post to post. I just talked about it just briefly, but I did do fences for probably 5-6 years. And what I did is just took the average fence that we were doing, 8-foot section, that's a post to post, 6-foot high, most common fence we did, added the materials, added the time and labor that it took to do that, travel time, and then just averaged it out with an average size length of fence. And it just ended up averaging out to about that $35 charge per one side of the panel. What you want to do is wherever you're located, you want to make sure that fits in the range of doing fences, the price range where you're at, so you're not too high or too low. It's really good, you can take my numbers and then do a fence yourself, what's the going rate, and check and see, and you might want to adjust it, up or down. And once again, I'm not going to come out and bid just doing a fence, because I just personally myself don't think there's a whole lot of money in doing fences. I'd rather paint a house than a fence, but I know there are some painters out there that just do fences and it's very profitable. So you'll just have to decide on your own. So let's talk about some of the charges that might make the $35 per panel situation go up or actually go down. Now this is a section here. This is 6 foot instead of 8 foot sections post to post. If you wanted to just drop that because you got 2 feet less, you got less material and less labor, you can just drop that right down. I drop it down to $32 per panel. This fence right here is not 8 feet high, and I can just drop that down also $2 or $3 per panel. I'm not going to get any lower than $30 per panel, because that's what's going to make it worth it for me to do a fence. Our fence painting method, if you do think this number is really high, and typically most customers that we give a fence bid to, they do think our prices are really high. But when it comes to painting a fence, we typically have one guy spraying, one guy back brushing, and we typically put 2 to 3 times more material on a fence than a do-it-yourselfer would, or even a lot of professional painters do. We absolutely saturate the fences like this. We use a either a 515 tip, like a HEA 515 tip, and somebody's just saturating that thing with paint coming out of an airless sprayer because it gets it on faster, and then somebody's just back brushing that saturated fence in, and we only do 1 coat. If you do more than 1 coat, you're going to stand a chance of the fence peeling. Now I'll talk about a couple other additional charges I have also now. This fence behind me, this was a oil-based coating that I put on this fence. I personally do not do oil-based coatings ever anymore when it comes to fences, and that is due to liability. Oil-based fences on a calm day like this where there's no wind at all, it literally will float, carry up off into the air, and on a cool day like this, it's not going to dry. It literally can carry about 300 yards, land on cars, other products that could cause liability issues, and I've even run into some issues like that in the past. A water-based coating that would be like the same color, a water-based coating is going to lift up in the air. If it does, it's a lot heavier, but if it does lift up in the air, it flash dries extremely fast, and typically if it lands anywhere 10 yards, 15 yards away, it's going to be just dry dust. I've never had an overspray claim on a fence like this, even when you got slats like this that are far apart where overspray could carry through. But if I was going to do an oil-based fence, just because of the inherent liability of oils going up in the air, carrying off, and then even just the cleanup process, getting oil-based coatings on you, cleaning up with water or not water, but paint thinner or lacquer thinners versus water is more expensive, I'm going to charge at least $3 per panel. So if I got a $35 panel charge, but the customer is adamant we use an oil-based coating, it's going to be a $3 additional charge just for that inconvenience and liability using that type of product. So now we're going to get questions about fences that have gates. So I got a gate right here, and a gate is typically not a post-to-post 8-foot section. We always just carry our charge gates as a panel, irregardless of how wide they are, as long as they are 8 foot or less. So this gate right here is going to count as 1 panel. Even if it's a little bit wider, it'll still count as 1 panel. If you're doing both sides, it'll count as 2 panels. This gate right here as a metal gate on the opposite side, so it's powder coated metal, and you don't want to get any type of stain or coating on that, so you do have to mask it. So I do have an additional charge if there's any metal on the gate that the customer doesn't want any of the coating on. I'm going to charge $25 to mask off a gate. So if I got two gates that are opening and closing that are like 6-foot gates or 8-foot gates, $25 a gate to mask off those gates. Now, if the gate is wood and you're staining it just like the rest of the fence, then we don't have an additional charge for that. I do occasionally run into where we've got the post. Every post is a different color than the rest of the fence. So you'll have part of the fence that is like a cedar color, and then the posts are occasionally a redwood color, and then they're typically like a solid color redwood. Now, if that's the case, I'm going to spray the entire fence, and I don't worry about getting overspray onto those posts because it's stain and it's self-priming. And then I'm just going to come back with a solid color stain, and I'm going to hand brush those individual posts. So if I do got to do all the individual posts, and a lot of times those posts are like 4x6 posts, or even if they're 4x4 posts, it is going to be a $7 per post charge to do each individual post. And now I'll talk about another couple scenarios you might end up charging a little bit extra to do a fence with. So when it comes to coating fences, we typically run into two options, and one of them is doing a semi-transparent stain or a solid color stain. By far the easiest to do when it comes to fencing is a solid color stain, because the stripping and cleaning process doesn't have to be nearly as thorough as if you're doing a semi-transparent stain, because any type of staining, any type of grain is going to show right through the semi-transparent stain. So you're going to have to really strip the fence really good. You see my video on rough sawn cedar fences like this, we use a rotating nozzle, and you can really strip that thing down to bare wood, but it's going to take you twice as much time to really prepare that thing so it looks really good when it comes to a semi-transparent stain. So if we're dealing with semi-transparent stains, I'm going to charge an additional $3 per panel if it is not a brand new fence. If it's a brand new fence, there's no water stains, there's no grain, there's no mildew, nothing I got to deal with to make that thing look really good. Because if you don't strip any water stains from sprinklers or any mildew or any of that grain off, when you put a semi-transparent stain right over the top of it, it's not going to look really good. Or if a semi-transparent stain is on there and hasn't completely worn out, it could come out really blotchy and not look really good. So you do got to strip and clean that thing really good, and it does take quite a bit more work than just doing a solid color. A solid color, we typically power wash a fence, just strip it lightly just to get all the dead wood off, the stuff that's really loose and dry rotted or just flaky, get that stuff off so you get a nice good penetration of the stain, whether it's semi-transparent or solid. You want to get it to absorb in there and bite really well and not peel off. But once again, don't over apply your stains, because if you over apply them, you will get peeling on your fence or whatever you're doing. That even pertains to a deck, but especially fences. One good heavy coat and it's going to look natural and look great. So I'll just touch on iron fences too, and I don't do iron fences nearly as much, but your typical iron fence, a lot of them are just like 4 feet high. Other ones are in that 6 to 8 foot range high, and they're typically about 6-inch pickets, little tiny pickets. Not nearly as much surface area. You don't go through nearly as much product, like 3 to 4 times less product, but the labor takes just as much, because just to get each one of those little spindles or spigots sprayed with an HVLP sprayer just takes a lot of time and effort. Usually have some rusting that you got to wire brush off and you got to prime. So the labor and the time comes out to about the same as doing a wood fence. Over the years, it's been about the same amount of time doing a section of iron fence versus a section of wood fence. So all my additional charges or charges that I charge less on or more on a wood fence, all typically pertain to an iron fence also. So if the fence is a little bit lower, instead of $35 a panel, I might be charging $30 a panel if it's just like a little small 3-foot fence that keeps in a dog or something like that. Now, if I do have an iron fence, very common, we have them around pools here. And so you have this 6-foot or 8-foot fence around a pool. And a lot of times the chemicals around the pool, cause those iron fences to be extremely rusty. So you got to do some wire brushing, you got to do some scraping, you got to do some rust inhibited primer. And we're typically using an oil-based coating like Rust-Oleum industrial enamel on a fence like that. And I can't stand spraying oil oils. So I do charge more because of liability, do charge more because of the rust issues, and you will end up getting callbacks on it more than likely. So on iron fences, I'm typically in the range per panel around pools, $40 to $45 per panel. So that's an additional $5 to $10 per panel on a pool fence. So I know when it comes to fences, once again, like the fence behind me, I get a lot of questions about overspray. I got tips and tricks how to control overspray. This fence right here, there's a pool right behind it, and I was using an oil-based coating. There's no issues with overspray. A lot of it is a spray technique, what size tip you use, what tip you do use. We use HEA, high efficiency airless tips that run at low pressures, and your gun angle is significantly important. You can't have somebody behind you holding a drop cloth or holding cardboard shields to help control overspray. You can check out some of my videos on how to do a fence, how to eliminate overspray liability. I know it can be an issue for some people, but it's never been an issue for me, because of the techniques that I use and the products I use. Once again, there's a few products out there I like to use. I use Benjamin Moore Arbor Coat is an amazing waterborne solid color finish. Sherwin-Williams even makes a product called Woodscapes that I really like. And those products, this is a kind of an overcast day, really cool. It's probably the high 40s, low 50s. And the paint or the stain, could carry, get a little bit of breeze, it could carry, but there's nothing around to cause it to land onto and stick. Even in temperatures like this, once the paint is atomized, the mist is actually going to fall down as dry overspray. But once again, really just know the situation, know the humidity. The more humid it is, the more wind it is, the cooler it is, the more likely you could have overspray even with water-based coatings. Oil-based coatings in a condition like this literally can carry about 500 yards away, get on somebody's house, get on their mailbox, get on their car, so it could be an issue. And once again, it's why I never do oil-based fences ever anymore. All right, so how do I actually go about the bidding process? What happens is the customer is going to call up and ask for a fence bid, and I'm going to ask them, are we a previous customer of theirs? If they're a previous customer, we did their house exterior, then I'm probably going to give them an estimate. If it's just a short run of fence and that's all they want done, it's probably going to be too small of a project. But if it is something I'm going to bid, irregardless of the situation, I'm going to just explain to them, all I got to do is see how many panels or know how many panels you have. I'm going to explain to them what a panel is. It's going to be post to post, and typically your posts are every 8 feet. Just count those panels up, all the ones that you want stained or treated, and then let me know how many you got. You can send me a couple pictures of the fence, and that way I can see and get an idea what it is. It is 6-foot fence, 3-foot fence, and it'll be easy for me to bid and estimate. I do like doing fence bids and estimates like this just over the phone. I do like to use Google Earth. Google Earth is an amazing tool where you can get on there, look at the fence, without having to ask for pictures, and you can see sometimes their entire property, and you can even count the panels yourself using Google Earth. It's just an absolute amazing tool. But just have the customer count it, send you some pictures, very simple and easy to do. I do exterior estimates over the phone and using Google Earth and Zillow. Once again, my estimating process, I like to streamline it, like to make it fast, like to make it cost effective, and then the estimates also sent by email, so I don't have to send print copies, send a hand delivered estimate either. So very simple, easy to do process. If you want to see my exterior bidding process, which is absolutely amazing and simple, go check that video out. So if you got any questions, I know I probably didn't hit something that you want to know when it comes to bidding a fence, leave it down in the comment section below. I'll try to check it out first couple days right away to answer your questions. If you got any tips and tricks when it comes to bidding or estimating fences, we would like to know. Just leave it down in the comment section below. If you haven't subscribed, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. If you've enjoyed this video, it helps us keep doing these videos and keeping us motivated. We'll see you next time on my next estimating video. I think I'm going to be doing one on interior painting here pretty soon. And I'm going to be doing one on doing concrete walkways, and then even estimating epoxy garage floors. So stay tuned for that video. We'll see you out.